Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Stewards, written by Traditional Wolf 007. I respect the humans. Did I ever tell you that? I was only a rifleman when we began the campaign to cleanse their world. That was a long time ago, but I still remember every moment of my time on Earth. I'd been stationed on a warm world called HFY for a few years in the security regiment. Most of our days were spent patrolling the outskirts of settlements and, as a matter of course, putting down any predators we came across. Keeping the herd safe was our prerogative. It was relatively easy work. As long as we kept the formation, we were mostly safe. As you'll find out when you get to the front, our smoothbore railguns tear through almost anything. I lost a friend of mine to an ambush predator called a HFY on that world, though. That was the first time I ever experienced loss of a comrade. It was a grim reminder of why we were necessary. Someone had to fight to make the galaxy safe for prey creatures like us. We cannot live in prosperous and enlightened civilizations while being hunted. The continued existence of predators has always been tantamount to perdition for us. They represent the wilderness, my child. We represent enthalpy, order. We turn dark forests into fertile, safe pastures, craggy peaks to quarries, poisonous swamps to cisterns. That is why we have dominated, here and throughout the galaxy. If predators are let into the mix, then soon there becomes no one to cut down the trees, to flatten the ground, and to drain muddy waters. The wild takes over once more, and it cares not for us. I was on leave during my time at HFY when it all started. The sun was shining above me as I grazed in an open field that stretched for as far as you could imagine. Peace and warmth would soon become distant memories. I received a call from my commanding officer that my leave had been cut short, and that I and the rest of the regiment were to return to base. I knew even then that something had come up, and we'd been reassigned. At that point, we'd been fighting against two spacefaring predator species for my entire life, the Voxatol and haughty felines that were ferocious in melee, but whose poor eyesight put them on par with us at range, and the Anunnaki, vicious insectoids who cared little for tactics and whose only goal was bloodshed to please their thirsting god. You'll be moving into a much more complex and diverse galactic battlefield, Dad, but perhaps you can learn something from my story. I'd assumed that we were going to be fighting against one of them. Worlds changed between our hands, and each of theirs time and time again. The back and forth of conquest never ceased. I remember standing at attention with my company at base. Our commander addressing us all, he said, "Warriors, I will make this brief. At Homeworld's midday yesterday, explorers from the Scouting Guild discovered a new world." He paused, and that pause felt as heavy as the 10 railguns in a young soldier's arms. "This world is inhabited by a thus far entirely unknown species of sapient predators." The collective gasp that went up through our ranks. You would have thought that the air had suddenly thinned to nothingness. "They are called humans, and they are primitive savages beyond reproach. We will go to their homeworld and show them the face of annihilation before they dirty the stars with their presence." I remember boarding a shuttle off of their paradisiacal world, the clang of my boots on the metal floor as I went to war. In orbit, waiting for us, was an invasion fleet. I was assigned to the Judgment, a mighty destroyer. You do well to put it in for a request to be assigned to a big ship like that. When we arrived over Earth, I remember feeling the recoil of the railgun barrel run down the length of the ship as it spat out tungsten rods at human cities below. The clouds of fire and dust could be seen from space as those cities were wiped clean off the world. It was awe-inspiring. It filled me with hope to know that we Ipov could wipe a species off the world like one would wipe mud off glass. We would make Earth a blank canvas, so that we could create our masterpiece atop it. who were ordered to the ground to eliminate all remaining natives and any other non-sapient predators we found along the way. Various regiments were given different sectors of the world, and ours was stuck in the northern tip of a region the humans called Appalachia. My platoon landed in a snow-covered field near a forest of great pine trees. As soon as my boots hit the frozen ground, I felt uneasy. The forest was a sinister thing. That much I sensed from the beginning. Our aerial assaults had bombed out all nearby infrastructure and eliminated most of the locals' flying machines, so we were left with only infantry to deal with. It sounded easy enough at the time. We marched all day through those cursed hills and valleys, avoiding dense forests wherever possible. We came across a few settlements in the time. Locals fought back against us with chemically propelled weapons. They were incredibly accurate and had impressive rates of fire, but our armor protected us enough to even things out. Most of them did not wear armor, and those that did found that it was useless against our volleys of fire. I was in the front line, so I would kneel down and allow the soldier behind me to steady his weapon on my shoulder as we fired. I would also be amongst the first to engage the enemy in melee should such things arise. We slaughtered any militia and civilians we found. We burned their hovels to the ground. I remember being worried about us taking 10 casualties the first day. Those deaths weighed so heavily on me as a rookie. It seemed unlikely that such primitive species would be able to inflict that many. We linked up with the rest of our battalion that night, exchanging stories of heroism and slaughter as we tried to stay warm in our portable shelters. The second day, we found almost no one. A few humans here and there, mostly the infirm, elderly, or females attempting to protect their brood. They put up little resistance. A mountain lion came quite close to killing me when I got separated from the unit, but I was rescued before it was able to touch me. We shot a few coyotes and orcs. We decided to save our ammunition on other prey species. They would be competition for the pasture later, but that was an issue that could wait. The trouble started that night. When we returned to the camp, we found that our shelters had been destroyed beyond repair. So we laid out in the cold with only our environmental suits to keep us warm, and shivered as the wind blew. It went on like that for a long time. We patrolled our area of operation all day and found next to nothing. We suffered through miserable nights. Here and there, the humans would make their presence subtly known. We'd heard chatter of soldiers going missing from the other platoons in the company, and their bodies would turn up on stakes made from trees on our patrol route. We'd hear voices of animals crying out in the night, and we could not be sure if they were the real thing or humans imitating their calls. Sometimes we'd hear strange and haunting music echoing through the trees, songs of alien myths. Then, one night, they struck. I remember hearing the muffled screams of one of my comrades as his throat was slit in the night. We picked up our guns and fired into the darkness in panic. Tall shapes standing in the darkness were outlined by the flashes of arcing electricity on our weapons. Then they began firing at us, not with their normal chemically propelled weapons, but with bows and arrows. They fired arrows at us, arrows! But enough of them hit our soldiers in vital places to kill a decent amount in our platoon. When dawn came, the predators slinked back to the forest and disappeared. None of us slept very much after that. We had reinforcements. Our platoon was back up to full strength, and Central Command seemed to have realized that they'd been overambitious with the amount of troops that they had assigned to each area. Soon, an entire battalion was sent to the area our platoon alone had once been given sole responsibility for. The humans fought like pack animals in small groups. They'd maneuver around our herd's ranks and shoot at us from multiple angles. They were vicious. I'll tell you, though, of what made me respect them. I'd been promoted to captain and given my own company. This was a few winters later, although with all the dust our orbital strikes kicked up into the upper atmosphere, it seemed that the summers scarcely came. We'd been assigned to move to contact a large local militia that had been causing trouble for our operations and was believed to be operating out of a large forest. The entire blasted region was essentially one big forest. but that's besides the point. I marched my company across the hill, and the very instant we were in sight of the forest in question, they began firing upon us. I ordered my warriors to close ranks and fire a volley into the tree line. The gunfire continued. One of my soldiers with unusually keen eyes pointed out that it looked like the humans were firing at our line from a trench dug along the edge of the wood. We fired volley after volley at them, killing some of them and taking casualties in turn. I ordered my men to fix bayonets and charge forward. To my astonishment, the humans in the trench charged forward as well. Some of them had bayonets on their guns, some of them did not. Others bore knives, machetes, and even spears made from whittled wood. They were incredibly fast, and as soon as they hit our line, everything devolved into chaos. I plunged my bayonet into their guts time after time, but for most of my men, they were far too vast and strong. It was a slaughter. I called for reinforcements, and soon after 2 more companies charged over the hill into the fray. The human numbers were whittled down until they all laid on the cold ground. It had taken about 4 of us to take each of them, but that is not why I respect them. I noticed that one of them laying on the ground was still moving. A strange thought occurred to me in that moment. I'd learned their language as part of my training to become an officer, so I pointed my gun at the human and demanded its surrender. It was an adolescent male, grasping tightly to an old battle rifle with a gleaming bayonet stained with Ipov blood. "I will let you live if you come with me and answer my questions. You will be captive of our empire," I said in its language. The reply shocked me. "It is better to die here, knowing that I lived and died for my people and my God, than to live 1,000 years having betrayed them. We're going to send all of you back to hell. You who kill and destroy everything that isn't you. We keep the balance on this world. We make sure that forests stand tall and that predators and prey do not go unchecked, because God made us the stewards of this place. I'm not afraid of dying for that." For the record, I disagree with the human's lofty ideal of balance, but the fact that it sought to achieve some sort of divinely ordained harmony made me pause. I'd never talked to an alien before. I'd never heard another way of thinking. It fascinated me. What really struck me, though, was the bravery of that young warrior. It reminded me of the best parts of our people. How could I erase that nobility from this universe? I left him be. We lost the war for Earth, of course. What I want you to remember, my son, before you go off to fight the humans across all the worlds that they have set themselves upon, is that they have a righteous wrath in them that boils their blood. They're strange and monstrous, but also noble. They are like spirits of the wilderness. We will never fully understand them. Learn from our mistakes of underestimating them. End of story. I would just like to thank our T5 members, Lord Azrakel, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Drexoon WRE, Blueberry Cat, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, and Leslie 517. Thank you very much.